You're listening to the Dibbly Dobbly Podcast. Remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, and click the bell to make sure you get the latest episodes of the podcast. Be sure to like and share our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter and on Instagram. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Dibbly Dobbly Podcast. And on today's episode, we're reviewing the first ODI between Australia and Pakistan. And what a game to start the summer. A low-scoring thriller at the MCG between Australia and Pakistan. Both teams making 200. PAK Cummins, the saviour, does it again, gets Australia over the line, saves Australia's bacon once again, as he's done on so many occasions during the last year or so for Australia in run chases. He was required to do the job again, and he got the job done. Pakistan nearly pulled off what would have been an unthinkable comeback. But Australia, in the end, all thanks to PAK Cummins, managed to get the job done in the end. So what a game to start this ODI series between Australia and Pakistan. And what a game to kick off the international summer. And it does really set the tone for what's to come, not only for the remainder of this ODI series and the T20s to follow, but for the Test series against Australia and India as well. But we've got plenty to talk about from this first ODI between Australia and Pakistan today. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. And first of all, let's have a look at the match summary from the first ODI between Australia and Pakistan from the MCG. As I said in the intro, it was a low-scoring affair at the MCG. Both teams struggled with the bat, but both teams excelled with the ball. Pakistan will put in to bat after PAK Cummins won the toss and chose to bowl first. Pakistan batted first, as I said, 203 all out in 46.4 overs. Mohammad Rizwan, the new ODI captain, top scored with 44. And Mitchell Starc led the way with the ball for Australia, taking 3 for 33 from 10 overs. Australia needed 204 runs to win. You would have expected a pretty straightforward run chase in that sort of scenario for Australia, chasing a total that's well below par. But in the end, it wasn't as straightforward as they would have hoped. They finished on 8 for 204 from 33.3 overs. Josh Inglis top scored with 49, and Haris Rauf took 3 wickets for Pakistan with the ball. Australia won by 2 wickets, and Mitchell Starc was named the player of the match. Now, what were some of the key moments and key factors from this first ODI between Australia and Pakistan from the MCG? Well, there were so many key moments and key factors that decided this game one way or the other. As the game progressed, both teams went back and forth, back and forth. So many key moments, so many pivotal moments as well. Well, the first one was Australia bowling out Pakistan for 203, which was a pretty good result for Australia with the ball. Send Pakistan into bat first, bowl them out for a low, mediocre, below par score, which they did, which was a good result. The late order hitting from the Pakistan tailenders of Naseem Shah, Shaheen Shah Afridi, Irfan Khan on debut helped Pakistan from 6 for 117 to 203. Those lower order runs were very, very critical for Pakistan in terms of getting them over that 200 mark and giving something for the bowlers to bowl to once the run chase begun. Haris Rauf breaking sort of the middle order really for Australia. And started the batting collapse. The partnership that Smith and Inglis had of 85 for the 3rd wicket. Shaheen Shah Afridi broke that partnership, getting rid of Smith. But then Haris Rauf came in and really changed the game in Pakistan's favour. He got 2 wickets in consecutive deliveries in his over. He got rid of Marnus Labuschagne and Glenn Maxwell for a golden duck, his Melbourne Stars teammate in the BBL. And therefore, Australia had a batting collapse. They lost 3 for none in 5 overs. It swung the game on its head, did a full 180, and Pakistan were looking like pulling off what would have been a miraculous sort of victory. So that's where the game took a turn. But, as he's always done of late, Captain PAK Cummins, his innings of 32 not out of 31 was key in terms of Australia getting over the line and getting the job done. How often we've seen PAK Cummins come in, cool, calm and collective, not even breaking a sweat. You can't even tell he's under pressure. He looks so calm. He's sort of like the Iceman. And just walked in, smashed 32 or 31, and there you go. And pretty much his innings was pivotal in terms of Australia getting over the line. So those were some of the key moments and key factors from this first ODI between Australia and Pakistan at the MCG. Now, let's talk about how both Australia and Pakistan went about their business in terms of their batting and bowling performances in this first ODI of the series. And we'll start with the home team, Australia, and talk through their batters, first of all, and talk about the batting performance, and then we'll move on to the bowling performance. But the batting for Australia in this first game of the series, chasing 203, you would think it's a straightforward run chase, but for Australia, they made it hard for themselves, chasing a well below par score set by Pakistan in this first game. They made it hard for themselves. As we've mentioned, PAK Cummins got them out of a jam and smashed 32 or 31 and got the job done, and Australia were able to claim victory. But for Australia, they lost both openers quite early. Matt Short, Jake Fraser-McGurk, new opening partnership for this ODI series, didn't really last long, both of them being dismissed early. Australia were 2 for 28 and 4 overs. But Steve Smith, Josh Inglis, brilliant partnership of 85 for the third wicket was taking Australia to victory. And that partnership was looking good. Smith and Inglis have been in good touch of late. Obviously, we saw in this partnership, Inglis played some pretty good shots. Same with Smith. And Pakistan didn't have any answers. And it looked like this partnership was going to take the game away from Pakistan and really be a foregone conclusion. But that wasn't to be the case. Steve Smith got out. He sliced one to backward point where Shaheen Shah Afridi took the wicket. And that pretty much opened the door for Pakistan, as we mentioned, where they lost 3 for none, Australia, in 5 balls in that mini batting collapse in the middle order. Josh Inglis went to Shaheen Shah Afridi. And then in the next over, in consecutive deliveries, Labuschagne, Maxwell, both gone to Haris Rauf. And his spell in that, block where he took 2 wickets in back-to-back balls pretty much turned the game on its head, and Australia were in a bit of bother. And then obviously came down to PAK Cummins and Mitchell Starc getting the job done like they did in the World Cup semi-final last year against South Africa. Cummins and Starc got Australia over the line in that game, in that semi-final. They had to do it again in this game against Pakistan at the MCG. But Australia's batting, some areas to work on, obviously. Things to work on going into game 2 of the series is shot selection. There was some pretty poor shot selection from the Australian batters and poor decision-making from nearly all of them, really. So that's an area that they need to tighten up on. Also building partnerships. There weren't really any substantial partnerships outside of the Smith and Inglis partnership. No one really backed that up. So this is not a new problem for Australia. This has always been the case for a while now, not only in ODIs, but in all formats, that they do have a bit of a batting collapse and they do struggle to put on partnerships. Obviously, Australia were playing aggressively. They were looking to get the job done. Chasing 203, you want to get it done as quickly as possible. But, they had all the time in the world. Maybe just take a little bit of time to get in, get set, and then go. So we saw that in this batting performance. They did really go hard at the top. Obviously, some positives with the bat. Steve Smith looked good for his 44, and that bodes well for Australia going into the Australia and India Test series. Smith looked good, moving pretty well. He timed the ball well. He played some good shots. Also, another positive, Josh Inglis, really taking his opportunity. He's been scoring runs this summer in domestic cricket and now for Australia in this first ODI of the series. And he's also been named the captain of the ODI side for the last game of this series against Pakistan and for the T20s against Pakistan as well, which no one really expected Josh Inglis to be named the captain. But the selectors have given him that opportunity to prove himself in a leadership role. So he'll take over in the last ODI of the series because of Smith, Labuschagne, and Starc and Cummins getting ready for the Test series. So Inglis will take over in the last game of the series. And then obviously in the T20s, he'll take over, obviously because of Mitchell Marsh's absence on parental leave. So for Josh, scoring runs and getting an opportunity as captain is bowing well for him. So there were the two positives for Australia, really. You would say probably the disappointment was the batting collapse, obviously. But the other disappointment was Jake Fraser-McGurk. 16 or 14, he didn't really look like the Jake Fraser-McGurk that we've seen of late, especially in this game. He looked a bit edgy. He looked a bit tense. He probably maybe was trying a little bit too hard. And obviously, we've got to remember that Jake is a very young man. He's in his early 20s. He's still developing as a player. But it's something that David Warner said on commentary, which I think is what Jake needs to look at going further in his development as a batter. And that's the ability to go through the gears. Now, at the moment, Jake's been on gear 1, which is the top gear. Now, as a batter, you can't be at top gear for a long time. You can't sustain it. You have to go through 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th. It's just like when you drive your car. You can't keep the engine on top gear. You have to change it up and down. It's the same with batting. And David Warner mentioned that about Jake, is about going through the gears, when to recognize in the game, when to attack, when to defend, when to be in 2nd, 3rd, 4th, or 5th gear, and then when to go to top gear and really unleash. Now, I think Jake can probably take a leaf out of David Warner's book and Chris Gale's book and Verinder Sehwag's book. Now, really, all of those players I mentioned are pretty good. They were pretty good players when they played. Obviously, all of them did well in all 3 formats of the game. All of them scored a triple century in Test cricket. Sehwag and Gale scored 2. David Warner just the 1. But they were very good players. Now, they were sort of like Jake Fraser-McGurk in their early days, where they just wanted to hit every ball to the boundary. But over the years, when they got into international cricket, when they learnt the ropes, they found a way to go through the gears, and they were able to, attack and defend when necessary, and when to go through the gears and not to do it, not to be on top gear all the time. So Jake can learn something from those 3 players I mentioned, and they did it so well. But as I said, he's in his early 20s. This series against Pakistan is a bit of an important series for him, because when Travis Head returns, it's either going to be Matt Short or Jake Fraser-McGurk to open the batting with him in that Champions Trophy. And both of them want to secure that opening spot, but both of them do have an opportunity to really make the most of this opportunity at the top of the order if they can do it. So really for Jake, the next 2 games are going to be important for him. We all know what he can do. He's got the talent, he's got the potential, but he just needs to learn that next step in his development as a batter, going through the gears and not being in top gear all the time. So I think that was an area of note from Australia's batting with Jake Fraser-McGurk. Also, the batting collapse I mentioned, that needs to be resolved in the next 2 games. Can't afford to lose wickets in clumps like that. And Australia will definitely work on that. A quick word on Pat Cummins, 32 off 31 not out. How many times have we seen it from Pat Cummins? He just comes in cool, calm, and collective. He keeps doing it. We saw it at the we saw it in the Test match against New Zealand, where he batted with Carey in that run chase. Edge bastion in the Ashes with Nathan Lyon. Obviously, in this game against Pakistan, the World Cup partnership with Glenn Maxwell against Afghanistan. He has this ability, Pat, to come in under pressure like this. And not too many players have this ability to come in and not let the pressure get to them. Really, with Pat Cummins, the pressure doesn't really faze him. And that's a very rare skill to have. That's a rare characteristic to have as a player, or in fact, an athlete, because pressure and high pressure situations and being in these moments can really have an effect on you. But with Pat Cummins, he takes it in his stride. And not a surprise to see him get Australia over the line again, obviously with Mitchell Starc at the other end. Got the job done again, and a very good innings from Pat Cummins, a very good innings that helped Australia get over the line and to go on and win this match. So Australia's batting, Smith and Inglis look pretty good. The opening partnership, Short and Fraser McGurk, will be disappointed about their output. As I mentioned, obviously the Champions Trophy up for grabs in terms of opening with Travis Head. Marnus was out of sorts a little bit. Hardy, backed away and was clean bowled. Maxwell was disappointed. We know that with Maxwell, it's either hit or miss. Sean Abbott was, very disappointed when he was run out towards the back end of the game. So there's a lot of work for Australia to do in terms of their batting. But at the end of the day, they got over the line, all thanks to another match-winning innings from PAK Cummins. Now, we'll talk about the bowlers and talk about Australia's bowling performance. Dismissing Pakistan for 203 was a pretty good performance. They won the toss. They chose to bowl first. There was a bit of pace and bounce on the surface, a bit too pace as well. And they were able to bowl Pakistan out for 203, which was a good result. They should have kept Pakistan under 200 at one stage. Pakistan was 6 for 117. They were able to get up to 203. And that was thanks to the lower order runs, I should have said, from the Thailanders. Irfan Khan, Afridi, Naseem Shah got Pakistan over 200. And Australia leaked a little bit of runs towards the innings with those runs there from the Thailanders from Pakistan. But in the end, it didn't really matter. 203 was a pretty good score to keep Pakistan too. They picked up wickets at regular intervals. They really made the most of the first power play where Mitchell Starc broke it open with those wickets at the start of the power play. And that's where Australia were able to pick up the momentum, pick up wickets at regular intervals, and really put Pakistan under pressure. Mitchell Starc was pretty good, 3 for 33 from his 10. Looking good going into the Test series against India. I thought he bowled well with good rhythm and good pace. He didn't swing the ball as much, Starc, but good rhythm, good pace, good signs going into the Test series against India in a few weeks' time. Also in the process, reached 100 ODI wickets in Australia, quicker than any other bowler to do that in Australia. Brett Lee had the previous record. He did it in 55 matches. Mitchell Starc did it in 54 matches. So it just shows you where Starc rates among the greats, especially in one-day cricket for Australia in terms of the bowling department. Also, PAK Cummins looked good. PAK Cummins bowled well, as you would expect from Pat. He bowled pretty well. He also batted well, as we already discussed. So that's good signs going into the Test series for PAK Cummins as well. The other bowlers, there was a lot of options for Australia in this game. Obviously, Labuschagne got a wicket. Hardy and Maxwell bowled a few overs. Matt Short just bowled the one. Adam Zampa, ever reliable, picked up a couple of wickets. Sean Abbott picked up the one wicket. So Australia have a lot of options with the ball. They did a pretty good job. Australia's fielding, there was a few misfields by Australia in this game. So something to tidy up on going into the next two games of the series. But other than that, their catching was pretty good. Their ground fielding was a bit poor at times, but something that they'll brush up on. But the bowling performance, I think the bowlers were pretty pleased with their effort, picking up wickets at regular intervals, really keeping Pakistan on the back foot. So I think Australia will be very pleased with their bowling performance. And overall, from a team perspective, I think Australia will be very, very pleased that they were able to get over the line in a very close game to start this ODI series against Pakistan. Let's talk about Pakistan's performance in this first ODI of the series against Australia. And let's talk about their batting and bowling in this first game. But we'll start with the batting group and talk about the batting performance from Pakistan. You have to be honest, and it was a very mediocre, poor batting performance by Pakistan in the first game of this series. They were batting first, could only score 203, which was well below par. Obviously, they would have hoped to aim for 250 plus at least, maybe 300. But to get 203 all out in 46.4 overs was a pretty disappointing display, if we're honest. They were 6 for 117 at one stage. They weren't looking like getting 200, but they managed to get over 200 in the end. And that was all thanks to Naseem Shah, 40 or 39, which is his highest score in one-day cricket. He showed some great intent, and he put some momentum, intent, and impetus back into the Pakistan innings. Also, Irfan Khan on debut, 22 for him. Shaheen Shah Afridi, 24. So those three combined well for the late order runs from the tail enders to get Pakistan over the line to that 200 mark, which wasn't enough in the end, but it gave something for the bowlers to bowl to when they begun bowling in the run chase. But the areas of concern for Pakistan were the lack of intent with the batting and not rotating the strike frequently. There were a lot of dot balls, a lot of inactivity, lack of intent. And that really showed in the opening partnership between Abdullah Shafiq and Saim Aroob. The first 10 overs, really, Pakistan need to show a bit more intent, especially in the first power play. Shafiq and Aroob didn't really do that. Both of them got out early on in the power play anyway. But that lack of intent is where Pakistan need to improve in the next two games. They need to show a bit more attacking, aggressive approach, showing that intent, looking to rotate strike, minimize dot balls, and look to put pressure on the Australian bowlers in Stark and Cummins and co. That's what they didn't do in this game, and that really set them back and really set the tone for the innings, really. So that's where they're lacking that intent. They need to show more intent with the bat. Also, a few batters struggled with the short ball, like Ghulam and others, as an example. They need to work on that. That's something that they'll need to combat in the next two games. That Australia will definitely go short. Obviously, as we know, with subcontinent players, they come to Australia, they do struggle with the short ball, which is no secret on these fast, bouncy wickets. So it's something that the Pakistan batters need to really look at going forward for the last two games of this series, and also going into the T20s as well, come to think of it. And as I said, lost early wickets up front. They lacked partnerships of significant note. The highest partnership was 39 between Azam and Rizwan. That was 39 for the third wicket. That was the highest partnership of the match for Pakistan. So, some areas to work on from Pakistan. Need to show a bit more intent with the bat. Need to build partnerships. Need to find a way to combat the short ball ploy from the Australian bowlers. And they need, one or two batters to go on and make a big score. And I suppose there were some positives from the batting performance. Babar Azam, for example, 37 or 44. Not a big score, but he looked good. Now, we know that Babar Azam has had a bit of a difficult time of it in Test cricket, well below his best. Obviously getting dropped for the last two Test matches against England, coming back in this ODI series against Australia, looking to prove a point. And he looked pretty good. He looked like the Babar Azam of old, but he couldn't go on and get that big score. Same with Mohammad Rizwan, new captain of this ODI team, 44 off 71. Yeah, looked good. It was a start, but then he got out to Marnus Labuschagne playing that sweep shot and getting that top edge, which was pretty disappointing, really. So if one of those two, if Pakistan are going to build big scores and challenge Australia in this series, they need either one of them or both of them in Azam and Rizwan to score a big score. And everyone else can bat around them. So that's what we didn't see in this first game. They were looking like doing that. But if they are going to go on and win this series, they need both of them to score big and really make it count. So some positives for Pakistan in the batting. Babar Azam, Rizwan looking good. Obviously need to go on with it in the next couple of games. The tail enders, Irfan Khan, Shaheen Shah Afridi scoring runs, Naseem Shah as well. So some positives for Pakistan to gain in the batting performance, but there's some work to do. They need to show a bit more intent, not losing wickets in clumps, building partnerships, and one of the top order going on to score a big score will definitely set them up for success in this ODI series against Australia. So that's the batting side of things. Talk about the bowling side of things for Pakistan. The bowlers did a pretty good job. Defending 203 is always going to be difficult, regardless. for any bowling attack. You're up against it. You need to take early wickets. You need to put the opposition under pressure. The only way you're going to win is by bowling the opposition out. And Pakistan found it tough, but they did find a way to push Australia with the ball. And no one really expected Australia to chase down this target with 2 wickets in hand. It was all left to PAK Cummins in the end. But, it really was a very spirited bowling performance. Shaheen Shah Afridi bowled well, 2 for 43 from his 10. He really led the Pakistan fight back because the partnership between Steve Smith and Inglis was developing well, looking like taking the game away from Pakistan at one stage. But Afridi comes in, gets rid of Smith, and then all of a sudden, Australia are on the back foot. And then that batting collapse, 3 for none happened in 5 balls. Afridi got rid of, Steve Smith, and then he got rid of Josh Inglis, and then that really started the batting collapse. Once Inglis went, and then obviously Harris Ralph came in the next over, got rid of Labuschagne and Maxwell in consecutive deliveries, and that's where the game turned on its head. And Harris Ralph's spell, 3 for 67 from 9 overs, taking those 2 wickets in that over, back-to-back, Labuschagne and Maxwell for a golden duck. He bowled well. He bowled with pace, and he looked up and about. Also, Naseem Shah bowled pretty well. And Hassanein was a little bit indifferent, but he picked up a crucial wicket nonetheless. The Pakistan bowlers bowled pretty well, challenging circumstances, defending 203. In the end, they nearly pulled off what would have been a very good victory and would have been a very unthinkable comeback. But it wasn't to be. But I think the bowling group will be very pleased with how they bowled. And they'll certainly take that confidence going into the next couple of games of this ODI series. So the bowling performance, pretty good from Pakistan. Also a word on Mohammad Rizwan's captaincy, new captain for this ODI team. He did pretty well. He handled the situation pretty well. Obviously, as a captain, you'll learn from the experiences. Hopefully it will serve him well going forward. But he did well as a captain. He really kept his team up and about. And obviously we know with Rizwan, he's got that energy about him and that aura. Often wicketkeepers do. They're always up and about. But, it was great to see. And Pakistan doing Pakistan things. Always managing to pull something out of the bag where all things seem lost. They always seem to pull something out of the bag, and they nearly did. But unfortunately, Australia, with PAK Cummins, managed to get over the line. So overall, in terms of the team performance from Pakistan, they'll be disappointed with the batting performance, but they'll be very pleased with the bowling performance and knowing that got a few areas to work on. Obviously, for Pakistan, they haven't played ODI cricket in a year. So not since the 2023 World Cup in India, they haven't played an ODI up until this ODI against Australia at the MCG. So it's been a year. They've got a new team. They had a couple of debutantes in Arub and Irfan Khan in this game. It's a new look team. They've got a new captain. It will take a bit of time to get used to the new dynamics that the team has to get used to. But, for Pakistan, it's all about learning and hoping that they can be better for the next 2 games. Plenty of work to do with the batting. The bowling performance was very good and spirited and nearly got them over the line. And it would have been a very miraculous victory if the bowlers were able to do it for Pakistan. Some final thoughts from me from this first ODI between Australia and Pakistan. And as I said at the top of the episode, what a game of cricket. Very exciting when I was watching the game myself. Edge of the seat stuff towards the end. What a way to start the series, and what a way to start the international summer of cricket in Australia. The summer is well and truly begun. It looked like a straightforward win for Australia. Chasing 203, you would think it would have been a straightforward win, but as we know in cricket, as many of us know in cricket, nothing's straightforward. There's always a twist, there's always a turn, and especially in low-scoring games, that's what we saw. But in the end, Australia were able to get the job done, all thanks to another miraculous innings from PAK Cummins. He does it again and again, and he handles the pressure so well. Cool, calm, and collective, Pat. And the captain standing up and leading from the front, and it was terrific to see that. Pakistan, on the other hand, showed some good fight in this game. As we always know from Pakistan, they always fight, they always scrap, they always manage to stay in the contest, and that's what they did in this game against Australia. They really pushed Australia to their limits. And despite not winning this game, I think that's a big plus. If you can push Australia like they did in this game, and that will definitely bow them with confidence going into the next two games of the series. But Pakistan showed some good fight. They pushed Australia until the end, didn't quite get over the line, but they should be very happy with their efforts. I think both teams will be very eager to improve their batting. Both teams, their batting performances in this game were below par. Australia with that batting collapse where they lost 3 for none. Pakistan losing wickets and not really showing great intent with the bat. So I think both teams going into the next game and the last game of the series will be hoping for a better batting performance from their batting groups. Their bowlers on both sides, Australia and Pakistan, will be pleased with their performances. Both bowling attacks bowled well. So plenty of positives there with both teams in terms of their bowling. Also, it was good to see, a reasonable crowd number at the MCG. Now, obviously, the crowds will get talked about in this series. A lot of conversation about the crowd at the MCG the other day, but 25,831. Majority of them were Pakistan supporters, and it was great to see. And they created a lot of noise and a great atmosphere. You always get that with subcontinental teams, especially with Pakistan. Always a great supporter base, and especially here in Australia as well. So they were cheering. They saw a great game of cricket. Often the low-scoring games are often the best games in one-day cricket, and that's what we saw in this first game of the series. So let's hope we see a very good game for the next game in Adelaide and also the last game in Perth. And let's hope we see a bit more people turning out for the games in Adelaide and Perth, and hoping that the next two games of this series will be just as exciting as we saw here at the MCG, which was a fantastic game to start the summer, but also to start the series as well. And I think both teams will be very pleased to be a part of what was a very exciting game of one-day cricket. Thanks, everyone, for listening to our first ODI review between Australia and Pakistan. If you're watching or listening to this episode of the podcast on our YouTube channel, let us know your thoughts on this first ODI between Australia and Pakistan in the comments. We would love to hear what you have to say. Thanks for watching and listening, and until next time, keep safe and bye for now.